Hey, it's Ryan with this week's Mille Lacs Fishing Report. It's late August and water temps are in the mid-70s. Starting off again with the muskie bite. Not much has changed, and that's going to be the theme with kind of everything this week. A lot of things are just kind of in their late summer pattern. We have experienced a few little changes, little minute changes, shifts in where fish are positioning themselves, and that kind of goes for everything across the board. But we're not going to see any big major change here until about another 2 weeks from now when we get our first big cold front. So to get back to the muskie bite, what I'd recommend doing is if you're just looking to catch a muskie casting, fish the deeper weed edges, 10 to 14 feet of water. What I'd recommend doing is fishing bucktails fast. You know, a bright color bucktail on a bright day, a darker color on a darker day. Those are kind of the directions I go with that. But fish them fast, fish the deep weed lines. That's probably your best bet at catching a fish right now. A little wild card to play with this time of year is if you get a windy day, one of my favorite things to do is to go out to the rock piles. And I like to fish rocks that are maybe adjacent to those deeper weed lines, or rock piles that are adjacent to deep water. A lot of times it's stuff that's marked with buoys close to deeper water, maybe stuff where that tulipy would hang out with. So if you've got buoys that are around that 30 feet of water area, those are kind of the makings for some good muskie habitat this time of year. And one of my favorite ways to pursue them is to throw crankbaits. And what I like to do is I like to throw a crankbait that runs a little bit deeper than the water that I'm fishing. So if I'm fishing 6 feet of water, I want to run a crankbait that's going to get me 8 or so feet down. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a lot of bottom contact and get my bait to deflect off cover. And I think it's that real erratic commotion that bait is making, bouncing off the structure. I think what that does is it provokes inactive fish into biting, and it's a great way to catch muskies this time of year, especially on a windy day. As far as the guys that are trolling, nothing's changed on the trolling front. Run big baits, go out to the flats, run deep water, try to find concentrations of bait fish, but 4 to 6 miles an hour, 10-inch plus baits, you know, you can try running them at different intervals down the water column. I'd say if you're halfway down, 2/3 of the way down the water column, trolling 4 or 5 miles an hour with a 10-inch plus bait. You know, it's just a matter of putting in your time and trying to find a fish that's aggressive and willing to go. But once you find it, I will say that the fish that you find out there in the basin and by the flats tend to be giants, and they're well worth the wait. So if you're going to go do that, good luck. Moving on to the walleye bite. Same thing with the walleyes, not a whole lot's changed. If you're going to go out during the day, the two things that I'd recommend are lead core and power corking. If it's a little bit calmer, sometimes it makes boat control easier for the lead core. So on a calmer day, maybe go with the lead core. Troll about 2 to 2.5 miles an hour. Small baits, little number 4 Selmo hornets, flicker shads, shad wraps, that sort of thing. But fish them, you know, a few feet off the bottom. Go out to the flats, gravel bars, rock piles, but maintain a consistent speed, cover some water, calm day. It's a great way to go out and learn the lead core and just catch some aggressive fish. If you're not prepared to do the lead core thing, something that anybody can do is the power corking. And power corking is a lot of fun, and if you're not familiar with it, all that's involved is using your fish finder, driving around until you mark some fish on it, and then throwing your bobbers right off the back of the boat trying to get it right on their nose. And power corking can put a lot of fish in the boat this time of year. It's a lot of fun, especially with a few people in the boat. But you can catch a lot of fish doing it. It's a lot of fun, and you don't need a lot of equipment to get it done. The differences that I would recommend in power corking is use a little bit larger bobber and use a little bit heavier barrel sinker to get your baits down quick. So I put mine on, I actually put a little swivel, a 3-foot leader above my hook, and then I put a 1/2 ounce barrel sinker on. And what that allows me to do is put a heavyweight, bigger bobber. That way it gets down to the fish quicker. So when I go over that fish, I can immediately put my bobber back, drop it on its nose, and try to catch them. Great spots to do that, I would say, are going to be mid-depth rock to gravel transitions. If you can find boulder to gravel transitions, that's a great way to try to get walleyes this time of year. The other spots that are kind of shoe-ins for this are going to be out on the edges of the flats and out on the edges of the gravel bars. A lot of times 28 feet of water seems to kind of be the magic number, plus or minus. So give it a try out there. It's a lot of fun, and you don't need a lot of equipment to do it. On to the smallmouth fishing. Smallmouth fishing's been really good this August. I've had a really great August. It's been better than I expected. We have had some slower days, and we have had some extremely good days, some really exceptional days of fishing out there this month. And August is typically a roller coaster for me. You know, we have good days and bad days. What I've been noticing is my bad days are not that bad, and they've been coming like right after a front. So if you get a cold front, I won't get as many bites that day or the next day, but what I'll notice is everything is big. So you'll be catching 4-pounders and up, and you won't get as many bites that day, but everything is going to be a giant, and it's a lot of fun. The other thing I've been noticing is when you have real consistent stable weather, we've been having some really incredible successful days of bass fishing, like truly phenomenal fishing over the last couple weeks. And I don't know why that is. I don't really have a good answer for it, but it seems like when they're on, they're just on. And I've had a lot of fun. I will say we've been fishing them a couple of different ways, and I break it down into kind of two different situations. One is bottom dragging baits, and the other one is kind of fishing minnow style baits. And the bottom dragging baits are a shoe-in. They work year round out here. It can be a little jig worm, it can be a Ned rig, or it can be a tube. But green pumpkin, lighter weight heads, drag it slow on the bottom. It just catches fish day in and day out here. The other bait, which is more of a wild card, but has produced some really phenomenal days of fishing under the right set of conditions, has been the spy bait. And the spy bait, it kind of looks like a minnow. It's got a little prop on either side of it. Really doesn't do a whole lot in the water. It's pretty subtle action. But what I've noticed is when you have a calmer day with some brighter sun, and you notice that fish are coming up to the top, but they won't take top waters, those seem to be the days where the spy baits really excel. And I don't know what it is about it, but there's a lot of little fry swimming around out in the lake, and I think that subtle spy bait, it doesn't have a real crazy vibration like a crankbait does. It just has a real small presence coming through the water, and the fish just gravitate to it on certain days. And I know a lot of people that have kind of given up on the spy bait, and I don't blame them, because I gave up on it for a while too. But the more I play with it, and the more I get used to it, and the more I'm starting to understand the conditions that it works in, the more I'm starting to realize that that thing is a winner, and it's here to stay, and it's a lot of fun to fish with on the right day. So keep a couple baits handy, something to drag bottom and something to imitate minnows, and you're going to have good days here. And it's going to continue like this until we get to that first cold front in September, and then it should only get better. As far as locations to find the smallmouth, what I would tell you is we've been catching fish from 3 feet of water all the way out to 30 feet of water, so depth seems somewhat irrelevant. I would say look for a larger rock structure. So be it big boulders or long points or spines, but anything that has large rock or big boulder on it, that seems to be the most attractive to the bass right now. But wherever you can find those larger rock structures, that's definitely where the fish seem to be keyed in on. If you're looking for a starting depth, just something to start at, what I would say is 10 to 12 feet of water. It's kind of a good starting point throughout the post spawn on this lake. One last thing, walleye season will open back up here again shortly. They're opening up the slot size to a little bit more liberal limits. It's still only one fish, but we're going to be able to keep some fish here this fall. A lot of what I've been catching has been falling in that keeper size range, so I'm kind of excited for that. We're going to be able to eat some walleye this fall. It's going to be good fishing, and it's only going to be getting better from here on out, and it's been good already. So prospects are good, everything's looking up, and It's going to be a great fall season coming up here. For everybody coming up this weekend, I wish you good luck fishing and have a great weekend.